Well played, sir.
So, I'm with Derick Fage.
Hey, buddy.
Thank you so much for doing the interview with
Michael,
us.
well, I dressed for it. You know, when you said interview, I went into that closet and I pulled out my best stuff. Got my national German soccer shirt here.
It's okay, we're zooming on your face.
Oh, representing my wife, Monica, who's German. Yeah. It's so funny I mentioned what I'm wearing, because as soon as I put these on, because obviously we're going to do a workout later, and Monica goes, God, we got to get you some new shorts.
Yeah.
And here I am doing an interview with you. It's perfect.
And the first time I met you, I was doing an interview with you.
That's right.
2012.
Has it been since then now?
Oh yeah, I remember. It was a very special moment.
It was.
We clicked through the massage.
Well, it was painful.
Oh.
We did yoga massage.
Yoga massage.
George makes up things. There's no such thing as yoga massage.
I made it up.
He made it up.
And you've been working out ever since.
That's right.
So I'm actually thrilled to know, step by step and in detail, basically your career journey.
Okay.
Starting from the age of 18.
Yeah. Why do you think that? 18 was an interesting time for me, for sure. Well, I was slow to graduate from high school, so I dropped out of high school 3 times until I finally graduated. My parents are very proud. And, well, I wasn't really a school guy. I think you know that from our relationship. And after graduating from high school, as a matter of fact, I started working for the computer consulting firm, which was a branch of my dad's accounting firm at the time. So he was a senior partner at GGFL, and then we had this branch consulting firm called Electrodata. And it was actually, I just fell into it. I was, just doing some part-time work for one of my dad's partners, and one of the people, the employees that was working for Electrodata, the computer company, asked me if I knew anything about computers. And it was interesting because we were one of the first people in our neighborhood to have a computer. My dad was tech crazy, always.
Huh.
Oh yeah, soon as something came out, my dad bought it.
Wow.
Like we had a laser disc player, okay? All right, it lasted like 4 months, I think. We had a Beta, right? VHS and Beta were competing it. We had the Betamax, of course. So my dad bought an Apple II Plus, and my brother and I, of course, were fascinated with the fact we had a computer. We knew nobody else that had a computer. So my brother and I, were on the computer constantly, just trying different things and, having fun with it. So when they found out I had a little bit of background in it, they asked me if I would help them out for the summer. There was a guy at a furniture company downtown on Murray Street that had hired the consulting firm to help them install software and then teach the software to all of their salespeople. Okay. So I learned the software and I became one of the instructors. And it was great because I just felt like it was a good time for me too, because I wasn't the most responsible young man. I got into some trouble, didn't make some great decisions. So getting, I think it just helped with my confidence at that time. So I got into that. But I always had, in the back of my mind, I loved acting, right? All through high school, I was on the assembly committee. I was on the improv team, competed in the Improv Olympics. So, that was sort of the dream. But I think like many people, you sort of set the dream aside and go, well, that's unrealistic. Maybe it'll be my hobby and I'll get a real job. And hopefully one day, if I'm lucky, it'll become my career. Okay. So that's where I was at 18. But I was sort of floating around. Like I was like staying on friends' couches. And, I was not unlike many 18-year-olds. But I was responsible. I went to work. I didn't miss days at work or anything like that. But those were, some partying days.
And that was from 18 to what? 18 to 22?
Yeah, probably around there. That was sort of, with my medical condition too, those were difficult years when it came to intimacy. That was around the time as you know, I planned my own suicide and luckily sort of had an epiphany the night of my planned suicide, not to go through with it. Had one of those aha moments where I had actually had a lot to drink and I was smoking a lot of pot at the time, and I was in my bedroom. I actually had pills and a plastic bag and an elastic on my bedside table, and I was going to take the pills and put the plastic bag and
where'd you get the information to do that?
Well, that's
pretty cruel.
Well, you know, everyone knew pills, right?
Okay, yes.
But I didn't necessarily I didn't know what the effect of the pills would have physically. So I thought if I suffocated myself at the same time, that I wouldn't suffer, you know, cardiac arrest or something, right? And go down horribly. And, you know, I was living with my friend Gary, who was down the hall. And I didn't want him to hear anything going on either. So I was in a terrible state and in tears. And I just started thinking about my family, you know, the support that I had. I was bullied relentlessly all through elementary school and then had a difficult time through high school, in particular with intimacy and having any confidence. You know, my self-esteem was pretty low, which I think surprises a lot of people because I was still a very outgoing person. But yeah, I thought about, you know, my mom and my dad and my extended family, my brother and my sisters and all these wonderful friends that I've had over the years that, you know, some of them knew about my medical condition and, you know, in talking, you know, sharing that you're incontinent at a young age, it's not an easy thing to do, so I shared with some close friends, but didn't give them the gory details. Of course, my family knew, and I thought of those people, and what dawned on me is that they invested a lot of time and love in me, right? Like oftentimes we're very selfish in the way we think about life. You know, we think about ourselves, and that makes sense, right? The most important thing in your life is you. You got to start with yourself. But I thought, wow, no, life isn't just about me. It's about all these people that supported me through those years, and don't I owe it to them to be alive tomorrow, right? What is it going to do to their lives? You know, it would destroy my mom's and dad's life, I think, would have destroyed their lives, right? And then my best friend, Gary Fields, who was down the hall, what's it going to do to him? Right? Why, I just imagine Gary and I shared everything except for my depression, which I was, I guess, ashamed and embarrassed to share with him, even though he's my best friend. And I thought, you know, if Gary comes in, like, there's another life destroyed. So, you know, taking your own life, again, some people don't have that aha moment and that epiphany because they're in a different state. I was lucky that I wasn't in such a state that I couldn't think about, you know, the other people around me. And I just decided then and there, okay, you know what, I'm unhappy. I kept fooling myself, thinking, you know, oh, you know what, I'll just pretend to be happy and it'll happen, right? I think a lot of us do that as sort of a defense mechanism. So I admitted to myself that I was depressed and I'd have to figure out how to get out of the depression. And I think part of that figuring out was understanding that I was going through a bad time and starting to tell more people, you know.
So in the sharing of being depressed.
Yeah, not even the depression, even the incontinence, right? Like I've just been hiding it. It's not like I was shouting it from the rooftops at the time, but just got more comfortable sharing a little bit more information so that I felt comfortable just going out, right? Going to dinner with people, going out to clubs with people, going out to the pub with people. I didn't want to feel paranoid all the time or feel like I was, you know, being the party pooper, like, guys, sorry, I have to go, without explaining to them why, right? It's just, well, why were you leaving? Like, or just, sometimes I would just disappear. And my friends would like, hey man, we were at the party and we turned around, all of a sudden you were gone. Right? So yeah, that's about 18 to, I would say, even mid 20s, but I got over some of my self-esteem issues and work was going great. I ended up getting hired. My dad's accounting firm hired me after my summer run at the consulting firm, and I enjoyed the responsibility. And I was a hard worker. You know, I didn't, you know, even though I was still having a great time and probably doing things my parents would have frowned upon, and I was still responsible and showing up for work, and I think that was exactly what I needed until my mid-20s. And I stayed there for 18 years.
18 years?
18 years at GGFL. Yeah.
Wow.
My dad was there for 49 years and I was there for 18 years. And then I got into the acting eventually through a murder mystery company. They were looking for new actors. I hadn't acted for a while. Again, I kind of put that on the back burner I did a little bit of stand-up comedy at Yuck Yucks, which was it was great. I got a good response, but I was so anxiety-ridden. I mean, being on stage by yourself.
So what was your writing material for that?
I used a lot of my medical condition in some of the stories that came out of that. So I think, that made me in itself feel a little bit more comfortable. I did about 6 minutes of material. I threw in some, just some other stories and funny stories about relationships and things like that. But I wasn't having fun with it. I was so full of anxiety. I was having panic attacks before I went on stage.
How many times did you do that?
I think I did about 7 times.
Well, that takes a lot of courage. It didn't get better?
The material got better.
Okay.
The response got better, but I still didn't feel comfortable.
And when you did it, was it more improv or was it more preparation?
It was a bit of a mix, but more preparation than anything.
Okay.
I didn't go off too much. I mean, that takes a lot of skill. I'm sure there's some guys that could start with that. I think most comedians script things from, I did a lot of research at that time and found out that most comedians script things, but they make it look like it's coming off the top of their head, right? They'll pick someone in the audience to pick on, but they may have somebody in mind already and they find that common person all the time. Maybe it's a guy in a baseball cap or something, or, it's maybe, hey, who works in the federal government here, right? Or something, right? And then you have the material ready to go. So I did that, and I was happy with the response, but I wasn't happy with how I felt about it. And then the Murder Mystery Company thing, they were looking for actors. I went and auditioned. They're called Big Time Murder Productions. Pete Dillon's the owner. Great guy to work for. I had a fantastic time. And I quickly sort of moved up and was one of the top people that Pete would call. And he knew I loved it. I didn't even know I was going to get paid for it. I was like, oh, free meal, 3 hours of acting? This is great. And then Pete's like, no, I'll pay you. I was like, oh, okay, this is even better. Free meal, 3 hours of acting, and I'm getting paid. And I had some great experiences. Ended up going to St. Martin in the Caribbean for 4 shows in 7 days, so at an all-inclusive, which, was, not only did I get paid, but I also got, airfare, accommodations, and all-inclusive resort, so that was a spectacular experience. We went to, I think it was Philadelphia in a private plane. A company had hired us. I hate flying. It was the scariest plane ride of my life. It was like an 8-seater, and you could see the pilot, right? So we're sitting there, and the pilot would turn to talk to us every once in a while, and I'm like, what are you doing? Don't look back, look forward, fly the plane. My friend Mark and I think we flew like this for like literally 40 minutes, because we hit some turbulence, and turbulence in a small plane, a lot different than in a large plane. Like we were dropping, it felt like 25 feet at a time. I was so scared. But that's kind of, the murder mystery thing rekindled my passion for acting and my love for acting.
And confidence.
And yeah, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I prepared well. Like I would never eat before a show. I would eat during the show because, it takes a little while to digest and so forth, so I didn't have to concern myself too much with my incontinence. And I'd pop like Imodiums like they were Smarties. I mean, I was practically eating, 4 Imodiums before I went to a show, just to protect myself and, help with the confidence. And through that, I started, then you meet other actors and you hear them talking, and I started doing voices for video games, and I did some local commercials, and then I started doing just looking out for anything that was available. So I'd audition for a B movie that you weren't getting paid for, but you got a lead role. And I saw a lot of friends doing a lot of, sort of background work and getting paid, but 12 hours at $10 an hour. And the agents that I had heard from, and just friends that I had heard from that had agents, were like, you know what, you can't even put that on your resume. Like, no one cares you sat in a cafe and said nothing.
I did a bit of that in Toronto.
Right?
$10 an hour, you just wait for your turn.
Yeah.
10 hours later, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, everybody dance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You gotta put that in your resume.
Yeah. And the only glamorous thing about movie making is what I realize is when the movie's done and those big stars get to go promote the movie.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just waiting around. Now, I mean, they're in a trailer and enjoying themselves, right? They've got people around them. But yeah, I mean, hats off to anybody that gets into the profession at the beginning, because as a background actor, you're right. You could literally sit around in the same spot for 10 hours, and then you do about an hour of I mean, it is so long because you have to do, 5 different camera angles on it. And, we're getting a reflection on this. We got to tape this off. You're like, oh, God.
But you're getting paid $10 an hour.
Oh, it was big money.
Which is big money compared to $7 an hour and everybody else is getting.
Well, that's true. So I decided, I'm not going to do background work. I did a couple of things, but I decided, no, you know what? I'm going to keep an eye out for auditions. And I built a really good resume. I started building up this pretty impressive resume between the commercials that I had done, the lead roles that I had in a few films, the voices for video games. I played a number of different characters in the Murder Mystery Company. So, it's live theater. It's a lot of improvising too. So, I think
some of the commercials.
M&T Glass was the first commercial that I ever did here in Ottawa. I had hair down to my butt. Okay. I had a back in a ponytail. I was wearing a bathrobe, and I was wandering around M&T Glass, basically looking for like the perfect shower stall.
Okay.
And then I stop at one, and then that's the one, right? And I'm like,
Oh, but no words.
No words.
No, there's no script here.
No.
It's like just
I did a Corbeil appliance commercial.
Okay.
I was one of the salespeople, and they had like a fake name, like salesman, Harold Smith or something. And again, no talking.
No talking.
Just me rubbing a counter. I can't even remember. It was like me buying like a stove or something. Me and my friend Jamie, actually. Me and my friend Jamie, and we both walk up and lean against the stove. It's very funny. What was it? Oh, Hazeldean Mall.
Okay.
And I think it was around. It wasn't Christmas. I don't think. So it's Hazeldean Mall is like one of those many malls that has different spots. And so it was sort of showing all the different things you could buy, all the different retailers that are available. So it was me running through the mall, sort of collecting different things.
Still no script.
Did I say anything in that one? No, I don't think I said anything in that. I don't think any of the commercials, now that you mentioned it.
It was just based on your look.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I'm a very expressive person.
Yeah.
It's all facial and body language, yeah. And then that's where the TV thing comes in.
Okay.
My stepmother Lorraine saw an ad in the paper for a new co-host for a daytime talk show called Daytime Ottawa on Rogers Community Television. So she calls me up and Ricky, I see it. That's what my family called me. And I this you'd be great. This is right up your alley. You've been getting back into acting and so forth. You'd be fantastic at this. And I'm like, and typical of me. I'm like, I don't have a camera. I don't know. They need they need the taped audition in 3 days. Like, I'm not gonna be able to put it together. She's like, Ricky, your father will get a camera. Invite one of your friends over to our place and let's videotape, record something, and you can send it in. Okay, I'll see if I can find somebody. Thank God for my stepmother being tough and just saying, just find somebody. So I called up my friend Jamie Douglas and like, hey dude, I want to do this audition. And yeah, he came over and we recorded an audition. I sort of did a fake interview.
Okay.
I submitted it to Rogers TV, and I think it was a very short period of time. I submitted it, and then 3 days after the deadline, I get a phone call, and I submitted my resume as well.
Okay.
And I get a phone call from them saying, hey, you know what, we're really interested. You mind coming down and doing a live interview and audition at the station? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I went down. Terry Tucker was the supervising producer at the time. Lynn Whitehead was off on maternity leave, who was the full-time supervising producer, but Terry Tucker did an interview with me, and then I did an interview, again, another mock interview, and I think we had set up a couple of things. One was sort of a sit-down interview, and then the other was a demo table doing a crafting thing, which I believe, if I remember correctly, I think Lynn came in for that one. And then I think, again, 72 hours later, I get a call and saying, hey, we like you. you're one of our finalists if you're interested. One of our 5 finalists vying for the job. And then I find out, so I haven't got the job. I'm competing against 4 other people. And this is, sort of the, reality TV is quite popular. So Rogers thought, hey, you know what? Let's do our own kind of reality TV.
Okay.
And we'll have each of these 5, give them an opportunity. So 1 week, all 5 of us get 1 hour, 1 day each week. It was Kristen Johnston was the co-host at the time. Jeff Mahler from Hot 89.9, he had left to go back to radio. So he was the male host, had left to go back to radio, and this is why they opened up this competition. It was cool though, because they had our picture in the paper, and the website, go vote for your favorite host. And of course I told everybody I knew. It was great that I was working at GGFL, because there's a whole bunch of people there that I could ask to vote for me. So I just bugged everyone consistently. It came down to votes, and then management had the final decision, but I got the votes, and management liked me, and I ended up getting this job doing live television. Now the difficult part is it didn't pay a lot. It was sort of paid an honorarium, and I was working at GGFL. But I had a house, a mortgage, right? And I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do here? So I went into the managing partner, Jerry Levitz at GGFL, and sat down with him. And he'd been very good. I mean, that whole company had been so nice to me. They knew that what my dream was, to get in film or television. So I sat down with Jerry and said, listen, I have this opportunity. I've won this contest. It happened to be literally 3 blocks away from GGFL. I said, what I'd like to do is I'll come in a little bit earlier, and I was working reception at the time. So I started in administration. I was working reception, so it was a lot more difficult, because now I had to get someone to replace me when I left. So I asked Jerry, can I sort of leave at 10 o'clock every day? And then when the show's done, so the show is 11 till noon, I'll be back by 12:30. I'll eat lunch at my desk, I'll work a little bit later if I have to. And he agreed. Okay. And thankfully, the rest of the staff was incredibly supportive. So a couple of people, they sort of rotated, would fill in for me while I went away for those, sort of 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours every day. And I started doing the show. And, what I love about community television is the fact that that it's on the job training, right? Okay. Like I didn't even get a tour of the station, right? It was basically here's the microphone, here's your co-host, and good luck.
So who's your co-host?
So Kristen Johnston was my co-host in the beginning. So it was so funny because I get the job. Day number 2, she takes me aside and says, "By the way, I'm leaving the show." It's my second day, and she's like, "I'm leaving the show." Like, was it something I said? I mean, what's going on? No, but she was working on a sort of DIY decorating show, which she had been working on this is her passion. Okay. She'd been putting it together for quite some time, and I think, so they knew this was going to happen too, because the show ended up being on Rogers. So the plan was, to get a new host in place. And then after she left, so I think we worked for a couple of months together, and after she left, I would at least have the experience to be able to bring somebody in, right? Wow. And help them out during their start. So yeah, you get the microphone. Of course, we got notes. So we had a full-time producer, Amrita Singh, who sent us a package each and every afternoon of who's going to be on the show the next day. And I was new to television, so I took it really seriously. So not only the 2.5 hours, during the day, at night, I was, going on websites and researching and, spending another probably 2 hours preparing for the show the next day. I learned eventually, especially Lynn Whitehead, she approached me at one point and said, there's 7-minute interviews. So just understand, you don't need to do an hour research for 7 minutes, right? Obviously we had, I think it was 5 or 6 segments at that time. So 5 or 6 guests. Sometimes you'll have more than one guest, but Some segments are sit-down interviews, you have to do a little more research. Some are, we had food segments every day. Well, there's not a lot of research I need to do. It's really just, preparing recipes and, teaching people at home how to prepare the recipe and having fun and interacting with the guest. So I was spending a lot of time in those early days. And then as you got used to it, I was probably spending a little bit less time in the evenings, which was great. But then I started falling in love even more with my community, because doing a television show, I knew everything that was happening in the community. And then people got to know you, right? Because you're a television personality. They started, inviting me to events, asking me to MC charity events for them. And I loved it. I think, I felt I was getting more out of it than, obviously I'm contributing my time and I'm volunteering my time. But I was getting a lot from it. It felt great.
Were you nervous doing the MCing?
I was.
So like the comedy?
Yeah, but so the MCing was much easier than the comedy, right? The comedy you have to be on, and you need to get a reaction, and you need an immediate reaction, or you're going down. So with the MC, it was you have sort of a basic script to follow and so forth. So that was much easier. Kind of like doing the murder mysteries, where we have a basic script. Pete would write these scripts, but there was a lot of improvisation, and I could do that in the MC gigs as well. So after Kristen left, they ended up calling Catherine Marion, who I had competed against for the job doing the show, asked her if she was still interested, and she was like, yeah, of course. So Catherine and I actually worked together for the first year, became great friends, best of friends. We loved working together. Fortunately for her, and unfortunately for me, a national show called The Mom Show found out about her, and I guess we're watching her on daytime, and offered her a job, and that she couldn't turn down. Right, it was The Mom Show. She had 4 kids. Yeah, she was perfect. She had television experience. Passionate mom. Great on camera. Very intelligent. So she was the total package. So off she went, and then Melanie Surjak, who was kind of our on-location person. They offered her the job, but she was in the same position as me, where she was working full-time and then offered this job. So she was juggling the 2 jobs like myself. After the end of that year, Melanie's job basically said, hey, listen, you got to choose one or the other. Well, we were making, as I said, an honorarium. So year 1, I made $50 a show. Year 2, I made $65 a show. Melanie left, and that's where TL Rader comes in. And she had auditioned, I think when Melanie obviously had a leg up because she was already working on the show, but TL had auditioned, and they were very impressed with TL, and TL had said, if anything ever comes up, give me a call. And so they did. And they offered TL the job. I started making $100 a show in that 3rd year. Okay. Yeah, things were moving. Yeah. The big money was coming in. But I had been at GGFL for quite a few years, right? Yeah. So I had a good salary there. So this was some supplemental income. And I had benefits at GGFL as well. So things were working out fine financially. And then TL and I stayed together for 5 years, and we had an amazing run. I mean, TL was, she helped me in a lot of ways, and probably the number one way was being organized. I mean, she even jokes herself that she's OCD. I mean, she writes down everything she eats in a little book, okay? A little writes everything down. But that also transcended into being a television host, where her notes were immaculate, right? And, I always, did really well with notes and so forth, but I think she just helped me, be probably a little bit more responsible. And the 2 of us kind of became associate producers of the show too, so we were booking content. We were also doing a second show, which was called Ottawa Living. So TL did the fashion. Wow. She was the fashion reporter, and I was the dining out reporter, which was amazing. I got to pick which restaurants in the city, and I took it a little... I took it down a different path, where before they're kind of going to the top end restaurants. I wanted to go to just interesting restaurants. I wanted to find out, because I'm not a food critic, right? my storytelling for the restaurants was about the people and the food, right? I mean, the food is one thing, but again, I wasn't going to go there and, you know, give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. So I started doing places like the Prescott, you know, one of the oldest pubs in, you know, in restaurants in the taverns in the city, places like that, and just, you know, off the beaten path. Greasy Spoons, John's Quick Lunch down on Wellington Street. Just little mom and pop places were fun to do. I mean, I did the gourmet ones too, but that was incredibly fun. And then TL, I mean, she wanted us to go national. Okay. And so her and her husband Chris, two again of my best friends, they started putting together video demos, and she started sending out them out on DVD to CBC, NBC, ABC, CTV, you name it. She was sending them all over with a big package, our photos and resumes and everything. Wow. Did a great job. But again, it's hard to reach people, right? There's a lot of competition, and media, you know, started changing during those years as well. But TL and I had a 5-year run. We did a ton of charity events together, emceed a ton of events together. Those were just amazing years. I mean, when I got off, so TL and I, after our first year together, we were, and I mean, I bugged Lynn Whitehead probably once every 2 months. Hey, if a full-time job ever becomes available, I want to do it. And she's like, well, you know, you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot, right? You know, it's community television, not gonna pay a heck of a lot of money. I said, well, we'll look at that when, if the offer ever comes, kind of was my mindset. And they really loved TL and I together. We had a great chemistry. Our friendship showed on air. And so that 4th year for me, 2nd year for TL, they offered us full time. Wow. Yeah. Not an easy decision. Sat down with my dad. Sat down, of course, with my ex-wife at the time. Sat down with Leon Glesman, one of the senior partners, who's a great supporter of mine throughout all of my years at GGFL, and Debbie Boucher, who was the managing partner after Jerry, and I went into Debbie's office after I decided to accept the job and told her about it, and I took about a $20,000 a year pay cut. Right, and I built up an excellent. A good salary, I should say. And, you know, I had benefits and so forth. The good thing is Rogers had benefits as part of the full-time job, which the benefits were excellent. But again, it was a $20,000 a year pay cut. My ex-wife and I had just bought sort of our dream home, backing onto, you know, a park in Canada. And 9 months later, we had to sell that home. Couldn't pay the mortgage anymore. Downsized, moved into a smaller home. Shortly after that, we ended up divorcing, not because of the sale of the home. There were a lot of different reasons, and don't have to go into those details. But yeah, so we ended up divorcing, and I think a big part of me getting over it was that I loved doing what I was doing. Right? I always pictured myself as a film or TV actor. That's what I wanted to do. I fell in love with hosting. And I think because it's flattering to know people want you for who you are. Right? I mean, you watch yourself, and, you know, we're such horrible critics on ourselves. I remember watching myself those first, you know, probably 2 months, right? And I'd watch every show. Yeah. And I was just distraught. Oh, look at the way I'm moving my hands. Oh my God, look at the way I talk. Oh, look at I slipped up and, you know, made a mistake and the way I pronounced that name and so forth. And, you know, friends and family were finally like, listen, that's who you are. That's who they hired. We all have these little things that we do. And guess what? Your mistakes are obvious to you because you're watching yourself back on TV, right? There's very few jobs in the world, and Monica has told me this, that, you know, people they watch your job every day. How many people have a job, right, that thousands of people are watching every day? Yeah. So you're kind of self-conscious because you know that's happening, but at the same time, like, relax. You're in a position where, you know, people are watching. That doesn't happen to everybody. So just be yourself, and that's what I did. And I think the medical condition for me actually started becoming a benefit to me, because I'd gone through all these struggles and these challenges, and I'd overcome a lot. And we'd have some really serious interviews on the show, where someone sitting across from me with stage 4 cancer, and they're doing a fundraiser, and they know that they don't have long to live, but they're so positive, and so inspiring, and you just you have this personal connection, this spiritual connection with that person, and I think a lot of it is because of what I had gone through, and I just started feeling energy from people all the time. People ask me, where do you get your energy from? I get it from people. Right? People wonder if I can relax. When I go home, I can sit back and relax and watch a movie and watch a hockey game, but when I'm around people, I just, Monica looking at me and off to the side here, she's like, yeah, that's the truth. But Monica's even said that to people too, right? Because people go to say to Monica, oh my God, how do you live with him? Like, with so much energy. She's like, no, you'd be surprised. Like, you can relax.
One of the things you do during interviews, and I've experienced this, you make the person who's in a position of vulnerability, because they're being interviewed, feel very, very comfortable. And so you being so positive and actually leading makes the person feel positive, and so you're basically tapping onto them becoming positive, but you initiated the positivity, and then you get that cycle going.
Yeah, it's part of your role.
Yeah.
Right? Is to help get their energy up, right? Help them feel comfortable. The great benefit at Daytime Ottawa doing the show is that we had a green room. That was a magical place. I mean, I can get emotional thinking about it, because it was just a hub of activity, and the control room was right there. So our guests could see inside the control room, right? Where, community TV, by the way, it's run by volunteers. Everybody there wants to be there. And you've got a high school co-op student working alongside a 72-year-old retiree who just wants something to do, right? They're looking for something to do. They want to get out and do something, volunteering their time, and in a social atmosphere. So you'd have this buzz where they could see, everything getting prepared for a TV show. That's exciting for them, right? Yeah. And then between 10:30 and about 10:55, TL and I out there, we're talking to them. So we're doing it's not even a pre-interview, right? Yeah. I don't want to talk about what you're coming on for, because I want it to be spontaneous. Yeah. But I want to introduce you to, the two of us. Let's find out about you. Not what you're talking about, find out about you. So tell us about yourself, tell us a little bit about your business. Have you ever been on TV before? No, don't look at the cameras, just look at us, right? It gives them, and I still do it now. I try to go into the makeup room on BT Montreal. It's a different atmosphere because it's a 3-hour show, right? Okay. So we don't have people sitting in the green room waiting to go on the show, whereas all of the guests for Daytime, it's a 1-hour show. They would show up a half hour before. That's what we asked everyone to do. So we had that opportunity to connect with them. So doing that 3-hour show is a little different, because you have a guest at 6:50, and then you have a guest at 7:20, and then you have a guest at 8:10, and then you have a guest at 8:40. They're not going to stay. Everybody stays. So you might not have that same buzz with all of them, and that was a great networking opportunity, right? All these people getting to meet each other that are all part of the same community, and they're exchanging business cards and ideas, and then making each other feel more comfortable too. Oh my God, have you ever been on TV before? Oh my God, no, it's my first time. Oh, well, I've been on with TL and Derick many times. Don't worry, they'll take care. So then, just all of a sudden you had this safety blanket because of everything that's going on. We have that at Breakfast Television Montreal, because our makeup room, we have, our production assistant, we have our makeup artist in there. We usually have an intern that's there, and of course the hosts are going in and out of the makeup room, so they're greeting the guests as well. So same idea, right? Again, another opportunity to make people feel comfortable before you go on camera. I mean, the best compliment you can get from someone afterwards, especially if it's their first time on TV, is oh my God, you made that so easy. Right? You made that so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Or I can't believe that was 5 minutes. I can't believe that I had so much more to say. Great, now you've left the viewers wanting more. And maybe there's an opportunity for you to come back and share more.
So how did you get to BTR? To BT Television?
Breakfast Television Montreal?
Yeah.
That was interesting. So I worked. TL and I did 5 years, and then Lois Lee, who's now CTV anchor in Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's doing CTV News. She's the news anchor there. We worked together for 2 years. Then she went to CTV Morning Live. And her husband was in Toronto, so they were doing a lot of sort of commuting back and forth between the two of them. She's a go-getter. Like, I knew she was going to get something because she didn't knock on doors.
Yeah.
Like, Lois kicked down doors and said, "You're going to hire me," basically, which I had so much respect for. And then I kind of had a rotation of guest co-hosts, like dozens of different people, which was great because then it was giving people an opportunity, right? But you had interesting guest co-hosts, right? I'd have somebody that I built a 10-year relationship with. You know what? My mom's dream was always to be a host of a television show, right? Do you mind if my mom comes and co-hosts? And you're like, yeah, you know what? I built a 10-year relationship with you. Yeah, why not, right? And none of them were a disaster, right? I mean, you co-hosted with me.
I was a bit of a disaster.
Tell the good people how good you were, George.
I just listened. I didn't have any questions.
Didn't ask one question
He
to
did
a guest.
all the talking and the host, and I was just, this is interesting.
Yeah, George just did this.
Best co-host he's ever had.
I think I even, on a few occasions, asked you questions just to get you into the conversation.
I got nothing.
Nothing.
I got nothing.
George, you cook much? No.
Nope.
George, what's your favorite meal? If we're in a kitchen segment, I get chicken.
Yeah. Oh, and you had me cooking.
I had you stirring.
Oh, that was awful.
Oh, yeah,
I couldn't even stir. Who stirred?
I couldn't even stir.
I couldn't even stir. It was so hard.
You're as bad as my dad.
It was awful.
My dad, this is a quick story. We're at John's Quick Lunch, and Tony, one of the owners, walks over to my dad. He brings my dad some tomatoes from his garden. He's like, "Oh, Rick, I had some tomatoes from my garden. You want some? Take some." My dad's like, "Oh, sorry, I don't cook." And Tony's like, "They're tomatoes.
Yeah.
Slice them and eat them." And my dad's like, "Yeah,
Nah.
I don't cut things."
Yeah, exactly.
What? One of my favorite stories of all time.
I don't cut things.
Yeah, I don't cut things. I should go back quickly. So, before I get to BT Montreal, the way that that people found out that I suffered from incontinence since birth. So that I suffer from fecal incontinence. I have since birth. I'm in the green. This is another example. So I'm in the green room. The executive director of the Canadian Continence Foundation is a guest on my show. Okay, she's there with another woman who has a product for people that are living with incontinence. So she comes into the green room. I'm talking to her, and then I just say, sort of nonchalantly, I'm like, "Oh, by the way, I've suffered from fecal incontinence since birth." And her eyes just go wide. She's like, "What? You're a television host. How long have you been doing television? Like, this is a live show." Like, "Oh, this is, I guess, it's 9 years now or something, like 8 or 9 years." She's like, "Would you mind, have you gone public with it?" I'm like, no, I haven't. Like, "Would you mind sharing that on the show? Like, during our segment?"
Wow.
And I went, "Yeah, sure. It's time."
Wow.
You know what? Sure, I'll share it. And I did. I shared it live on television
You
that
knew
day.
you were coming on, though, because you usually prepare for your guests.
Yeah.
So when you knew, what was happening in your mind? Like,
I was using it more of, oh, great, there's a resource, right? I can do some research and educate myself and so forth. It didn't dawn on me that, oh, here's an opportunity for me to tell everyone I crap myself.
Okay.
But just the fact that she was so passionate about it. She's like, you don't understand. Trying to raise awareness is so difficult. It's such a taboo subject, right? You can compare it to mental health, mental illness, right? It's been a taboo subject for so long, and how far we've come. We still have a long way to go. But so many organizations out there now that are promoting, good mental health. So many people have, shared their own stories. Silken Lauman, it was an idol of Monica and I. She shared her story of, suffering from mental illness, and she's got a great website. And I just started, just thought, yeah, let's just go ahead.
Wow,
let's do it. Yeah. So I did, and then I shared it publicly on social media. I wrote a long post on Facebook, and I linked it onto Twitter, and then I got all these incredible responses. It was really overwhelming. It was really emotional. Some people, that didn't suffer from incontinence, but just said to me, "Wow, just made me feel better that somebody else is out there that's had a difficult time, and to see where you are in life now compared to imagine, you know, where you were as a young boy and how much difficulty that must have been. I had a woman send me a Facebook message saying she hadn't left home in 28 years except to go to doctor's appointments and get groceries.
Wow.
And I just thought, wow, that's heartbreaking, you know, absolutely heartbreaking, you know. And then other people, you know, my father was diagnosed or started suffering from incontinence, you know, a couple of years ago, and he hasn't left the house, doesn't go to weddings, doesn't go to funerals, doesn't go out to dinner. And, you know, thanks for sharing your story. I'm going to show my dad, you know, your post. And so those are the kind of responses I started getting. And I said, wow, this is, okay, it's not unexpected. You know, I certainly thought there'd be a number of people who would respect the fact that, you know, I'm sharing something so personal. That was, you know, a huge embarrassment and a huge cause of shame. And you know, failed relationships, I mean, you name it, depression, anxiety, panic attacks. This woman, Sarah Roberts, reached out to me and said, you know, you sharing your story so publicly, it gave me the courage to share my own story, not about incontinence, but about her alcoholism. And just those things just kept coming through my inbox, and I, okay, wow, man, just sharing my story, what a big difference it's made to a number of people. And then the executive director, Jackie, of the Canadian Continence Foundation, she called me 48 hours later and asked if I'd be interested in being sort of the champion and the ambassador of the foundation. And I said yes on the spot. Like I didn't call Monica. Monica would have said, you know, yes in 2 seconds, right? But I didn't. It's not like I was gonna, you know, say no to an opportunity like that, just because of the response that I got. So I said absolutely, and I've become a member of the board of directors as well, and opened up, you know, many doors to have speaking engagements internationally now. So the way I get to Breakfast Television Montreal is Rogers owns City TV, which the breakfast televisions across the country are on City TV, and the vice president of Rogers at the time, who she's now president, Colette Watson, was a fan of mine, and the team at Breakfast Television Montreal, Joanne Vracus, who is my co-host on the show, she was taking some vacation time, and she thought, you know what, why don't you come to Montreal and just fill in for Joanne's vacation, when, you know, while she's on vacation. It's not a far trip. So I went down, I filled in with Alex Despatie, the former silver medalist diver, who, fantastic guy. We got along really, really well. Sort of had a great immediate friendship, you know. Unfortunately, I ended up being offered his job. I went back and did another couple of weeks when Joanne's mother passed away unexpectedly. It was devastating for Joanne, you know, for any of us that have lost anybody. But unexpectedly, like she did, it was, man, it was tough times for her. And I filled in, and then, what's that?
She was pregnant.
Oh yeah, and she was pregnant at the time with her first child. Wow. Right? You know, losing your mother when you're pregnant, you just dream about, you know, sharing this baby with your mom and the rest of your family. You know, when you think of having a kid, who's the first person you think of sharing it with is your mom, right? I mean, it's a beautiful moment that she didn't get to have. And so I filled in for her, and then a few months later, I got an offer. They asked me if I wanted to be the host of Breakfast Television Montreal.
Now, the first time you went in to host Breakfast Montreal, were you anxious, or it was like?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I didn't know them. I had met them previously, but just shortly, because I was speaking in Montreal. I had a speaking engagement at the a Nurses Association conference, which was actually really exciting for me, because I was the first patient in their 45-year history that wasn't a medical professional to speak to people in the field that deal with, you know, ostomy and continence and that kind of thing. So that was an exciting moment for me. That was sort of the first time I got on stage and shared it with hundreds of people, my story. But you know, taking the job in Montreal was a difficult decision, right? I was leaving a show that I had done for 11 years.
And the community.
Well, more importantly, you know, Monica and I knew that she couldn't come to Montreal, right? Our circumstances dictated that she couldn't come to Montreal. We each have a child from a previous relationship with shared custody, so we know you can't just pack up a family and leave. So we had to weigh the pros and cons. You know, Montreal's a huge market, right? In Ottawa, at that time, I was producing, for 2 years, I was producing the show on my own. So booking 35 guests a week on my own.
Yeah.
Doing charity events, which, you know, I still love to do, but, you know, not a big production team, you know, to work with. And my experience in Montreal was, you know, there's a team there, right? You know, everybody is a full-time employee there as well, right? It's not you know, the volunteers, don't get me wrong, I work with were fantastic, right? But it was a rotation, somebody new oftentimes every day, right? You'd have some of the regulars, but you know, when those co-op students left, and train some new co-op students and so forth, and you get into an atmosphere where everybody's you know, a paid professional, and how smoothly it ran, and you know, how much support there is behind you, and you know, how much I liked working with everybody, the crew, the on-air talent. What was coincidentally the only person I'd never worked with was Joanne, who I was going to be working with.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So I hadn't met Joanne. No, of course I started watching the show often just to see, you know, Joanne's personality and so forth, and you know, just came to the realization one of the most talented people I would ever have worked with. No, probably, you know, the most talented. You know, she was funny and witty and quick and professional, a news anchor, a great interviewer, and after a lot of tears and yelling and screaming and having to say goodbye to, you know, the people I'd worked with at Rogers TV for so many years and the bonds that I created in the community, I went back to Rogers and said, yeah, you know, we'll make it work. And I don't regret the decision. You know, it's a different show too. I had to, you know, I've never read a teleprompter before. I started all of a sudden, you know, doing sports, which was great because I'm passionate. I love sports, so that was an exciting part of doing it too, right? And you know, I've always enjoyed politics and talking about, you know, current events and so forth. So it gave me a broader opportunity to do that. Whereas daytime was more of a lifestyle show, so we didn't talk a lot of serious issues on the show. If it was, you know, a very local issue, you know, a city of Ottawa issue, city council, mayor kind of thing, you know, we talked about it. But again, sort of on the lighter side of it, where, you know, I could talk about more serious subjects, could have opinions on different subjects. You know, we would have, you know, discussions with all the hosts that could get, you know, heated, and it was, you know, it was a lot of fun. So there was all these different dynamics, and it's a 3-hour show, right? So it's just this wheel that keeps turning, and it's so exciting. So you have your news and your weather and your traffic and your sports, and then a guest, and then your news and your weather and traffic and sports and a guest, right? And then a chat, and then a newsstand, and you know, it's exciting, right? And you go in, and same feeling that I had in Ottawa, where who am I going to meet today, right? It's how many jobs have that? Yeah. Where you're like, what kind of topic am I going to be, you know, discussing today? What kind of fascinating person am I going to meet today? It, you know, it makes it exciting, right? You know, you don't get bored doing a job like that. And again, then just starting to become part of a new community, right? And starting to meet people and introduce yourself, and then having a different perspective. Right, coming from somewhere else sometimes, which Lois Lee did. You know, she came from Toronto to Ottawa, and you know, people sort of questioned, well, she's not from Ottawa, why is she a good fit? Because she sees the city with different eyes, right? And oftentimes we're very cynical and very critical of our own city, right? When we talk, you know, anytime we talked about the city of Ottawa on the show, it was, you know, usually complaining about something, look at a waste of money here, a bad decision there, right? And then, but somebody else comes in and goes, yeah, but you should see what they're doing in Toronto. You know what I mean? And then you start to appreciate, I think, different things that other people might not necessarily appreciate, and vice versa. Well, you know, in the city I grew up in, we did this, right? In Montreal, they have a party system when it comes to municipal politics, whereas, you know, anywhere else in Canada, you don't have that type of system. So again, you know, coming in with the perspective, you guys have a party system? Like, that's crazy, right? I can't believe it, right? And all these nuances, I think, were a benefit, right, for me. Yeah, sure. You know, it's not like I didn't know Montreal. Growing up in Ottawa, all of us visited Montreal. I mean, you know, during my teen years and early 20s, we had no hockey team, right? We had no big indoor stadium for concerts. So where did we go for sports? We went to watch the Expos in Montreal. We went to watch the Canadiens in Montreal. We went to all the any concerts that came in this region was Montreal. There was nowhere else to go. So I was very, very familiar with it. Lorraine, my stepmother, went back and forth to Montreal all the time. I believe when she first met my dad, she was still getting her hair done in Montreal. Like, she traveled to Montreal to get her hair done. And then we'd go to Montreal, you know, for great food too. It's always been an incredible city for great food. I mean, Ottawa's certainly come up a lot, you know. Like, when I was growing up, there was like pubs, taverns, and roadhouses, and then steak joints. I mean,
well, our population finally reached 1 million.
Oh, yeah, I know. So, and look at the culinary scene in Ottawa. It's, you know, magnificent. But Montreal was the place to go, right? We would go there, and sometimes I remember going with friends just for dinner. You know, just let's go on a road trip and go have a fantastic dinner. And Monica from Montreal as well, so, you know, I could find out a little bit more from the city through Mo. And it's been amazing.
And so what's your vision afterwards? So you're in BTR now, or sorry, Breakfast Television.
Yeah.
What do I say BTR?
I don't know where that's from.
It's Breakfast Television.
Yeah. BT Montreal.
Yeah, BT. And so where do you see yourself going after that? Like, we were talking about maybe a book, or... Yeah,
so that's interesting you bring up. So I'm in the midst of writing a book. It's coming along slowly. I've also talked to a woman about actually writing a children's book. Sort of, you know, with a positive message of talking about the challenges and struggles I've gone through, and, you know, the support system. And it's also a bit of therapy for me, you know. I think one of the regrets I have from my childhood is I had a lot of great moments in my life. I really did. I had, you know, my parents were well-to-do. You know, we traveled to Florida. We went to Disneyland. You know, we had a condominium in Sarasota, Florida for a while. You know, after my parents divorced, my dad had a cottage and my mom had a cottage. Right? There were, you know, just all these incredible benefits, right, of growing up in that and, you know, our house backed onto a creek. We had a swimming pool. I forget so many of those memories, the positive memories. And I think a lot of it is because I wanted to forget the negative things. And unfortunately, along the way, I forgot, even my brother or my sisters or my mom or dad will bring up something, and I have no recollection of it. And it saddens me because it's you know, they're talking about something that should have been a joyful moment in my life that I should look back and go, oh yeah, I remember that. That was great. And I don't remember a lot of those things. I don't know. I think maybe, and the way that she has me starting the children's book isn't, you know, not just jumping in and writing. It's you know, Derick, tell me about when you were 8 to 12 years old. Where did you live? Who were your friends? You know, what did you enjoy doing? So just breaking it down in those little bits, and, you know, so that it's going to be in different phases. It's just tough, you know, you get so busy, you want to relax too, and you know, trying to do it all, but Yeah, the book's certainly something I'm interested in doing, and the speaking engagements has been an incredible experience.
But that's right, you did a TED Talk.
Yeah, I did a TEDx talk in Laval. A guest that was on the show, Stephanie Erickson, I told her just a little bit about my story, and she suggested I apply for as a TEDx speaker, and I did, and they accepted my application. Stephanie ended up being my coach, so she would send me emails, constantly as we lead up to it of, you should be, at this point now with your speech, right? If you've got visuals, you should be at this point and have sent them in and that sort of thing. So, and TEDx very organized that way. So if you want to do a TEDx in your community, it's not just I'm doing it. The TED Talk sort of umbrella, they take it very seriously. So you really have to follow carefully all the instruction that they send to you, which, I mean, they've been doing it so long and it's been so successful. It's very good. And then, I did a couple of rehearsals, and then I did the talk, and the reaction I got from the audience was incredible. It was very emotional. I mean, you've seen it. I'm an emotional person, so I find it, when you're talking about some of those difficult moments in your life, it's hard not to get emotional, right? When you discuss plans to take your own life, or you discuss, the relentless bullying, and, I wasn't just called names, man. I was beaten up. I was thrown down the side of the hill down the creek, it was some really bad times, shamed and embarrassed and called names in the schoolyard. It was really hard. And then to pour that out to people, and then, I get this standing ovation, and then we have an intermission, and I go out into the hall to meet my brother and my dad. Man, seeing my brother and my dad in the front row, and not knowing some of the story, I never told my dad and my brother I planned to kill myself, ever. So that's the first time they're seeing it. And my dad is just in tears, the whole speech. Couldn't look at him anymore. For 17 minutes, my dad's crying in the front row. And so I went to greet my dad and my brother, and all these strangers I never met before, came up to me and were giving me hugs and thanking me for, being so honest and vulnerable. And it was one of the, if I think back on some of the best moments in my life, that certainly ranks up there with some of them.
So it kind of a magical moment, right?
Yeah.
Everything was just perfect.
Yeah. You know how it feels, because you and I have that, that spiritual relationship where we connect on a different level than just anybody that you meet in your life, and that's why we've remained friends and for so long. It's incredible when you sort of see people for who they are, and you allow yourself the same thing, right? So that TEDx talk ended up, the Canadian Continence Foundation, of course, shared it, and then people in the healthcare community started finding out about it, and it started getting shared a little bit more. And then I started getting offers to go and speak, and just sharing my story. The last one I did was the longest one, I think an hour and a half speech I did for a national organization called DFK Canada. It's a national organization that accounting firms sort of get together. They share common practices and that kind of thing. So GGFL was the host, the company that my dad was a partner with and I worked at. And, again, that was another moment to share with people that had known me for so long. Knew that I had a medical condition, right? Didn't necessarily know to the, the great extent that it was, and that what kind of impact and effect it had on my life. So, sharing that hour and a half, and, I was working at GGFL when I planned my own suicide. They had no idea. So, to be with my GGFL family in that room, and then, of course, there are people from across the country, and then you just get that same feedback again where just, hey, thanks for sharing your story, and you know, it was inspiring to see how you went. I mean, because not a lot of people that suffer from incontinence are going to choose, I want to be an actor, right? Like, I wanted to be invisible.
Yeah.
I did. When I was young, I wanted to be invisible. I was like, I loved sports, and I loved playing, and I loved nature, I loved being outside, and I loved people. At the same time, I wanted to be invisible. Like, I spent a lot of time by myself. Not in a bad way. Like, I had a great imagination. I would come up with the craziest scenarios in my head, you know. My dad had a little workshop in our basement that I would just put together rudimentary, like little projects, and I spent tons of time in the creek behind our house. I mean, geez, like thousands of hours, I'm sure, behind that creek. And then you get to know some of the kids in the neighborhood, right? And, you know, when you only see them for a little while, it's much easier to hide, right, your condition. Whereas in school, see those kids every day, and eventually you're going to have an accident, or, you know, you're going to smell, right? I mean, all these, something's going to happen, right? And that's, then the chirping starts, right? The kids can be difficult on each other. But, you know, to decide that I want to be an actor, and then I'm going to try stand-up comedy, and then I'm going to do a live television show, you know? I think sometimes I'm like, what? Obviously,
I guess the passion was bigger than the fear.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I go from an hour live television show, 1 hour live television show, to a 3 hour live television show. And, you know, I've had accidents live on the air, right? Where I've had to leave. You know? Like, actually this morning, I was about to do sports, and I was like, oh my God, I turned to Joanne. I'm like, okay, after sports, I'm going to run to the washroom and back. And I had like a 2-minute period to try to get back in. So, of course, you know, they're scrambling like, okay, Tina, who's filling in for Catherine, because Catherine's on location. Tina, you might have to do celebrations coming up after the break. Luckily, I made it to the washroom and back in time. But, you know, those are some of the things that Monica actually has told me, you know, before, like, sometimes I kind of poo-poo it, you know, I'm sort of like, oh, well, you know, everybody has their issues. And she's like, yeah, that's kind of a serious issue. Yeah. You know, like, it's okay to be affected by it. You don't have to pretend that it's not a big deal, you know? You know, when I crapped myself on live TV earlier this year, you know, it was embarrassing, man. Now, no viewer at home knew it. Okay, that doesn't matter to me, right? It's how it affects me psychologically. No, I had to go. I had to, you know, change my pants. I had to change my underwear. I changed my pants. Come back in. I go back into the makeup room, and I'm in tears. Yeah. Okay, still. Right, and you know, everyone asking you, are you okay, and so forth. Yeah. I don't think there'll ever be a time where I'm not going to have one once in a while that's going to be upsetting. Okay. But as I learned as a kid, and I think probably from my mom and dad, I just have had this mental strength. And I've always sort of, when I've had an incident, I sort of said to myself, okay, that's one incident in a long life. Like, I've got a long life ahead. I can't let this one affect, you know, the next day, the next hour, the next minute. I've cleaned myself up. No one's the wiser, usually, right? I mean, that's really man, I had a horrible accident at the Turkish embassy when I was there with Lois. I've never gone back since because I was so embarrassed. It was just, you know, and again, you know, everybody that was there when I went, hey, man, it's okay. Like, don't be embarrassed. It's fine. No fault of your own. Like, I didn't want this for me, right? I had to tuck my pants into my socks because I had diarrhea so bad that it would have leaked onto the floor. And, you know, like, I'm at the Turkish embassy with plush rugs all over the place. Then I go to the washroom, and of course, like, security follows you, right? And I'm not blaming them. Of course they should, right? I go to the washroom, and, you know, I've got to clean up, and, you know, I don't want to plug the toilet. I'm like, oh my God, I'm having like a heart attack. So then so from the washroom, I have to go back into the dining room and say to Lois, who's there, and I'm kneeling on the floor so no one can see that I, you know, crap. And I'm like, Lois, I have a medical emergency. She doesn't know about my problem. So there's another, right? There's another example of if Lois knew my medical condition, she could have helped me. All I had to do was tell her, right? And have faith in her, and I should have.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I told her later on, not in that moment, you know, kind of the next day sort of thing. But I'm like, I've had a medical emergency, I had to go. Of course, then I had to go back to the front door where security, you know, follows me out. And I went home, and you know, I'm mid-40s, and I cleaned up, and Monica comes home, and I'm in bed crying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, probably those people would have been wise that something happened, right? This one was pretty obvious, but damn it, you know, half of them in that room I knew, and they were my friends. What do they care? And I've received invitations after to go back. It's not like the Turkish embassy, like, we're not having shitty pants back. But I was just, psychologically, I should have just accepted another invitation and gone back, but I haven't. You know? One of the few times, though, that I've let it affect me to that extent where I was like, I'm not going to go back. And it's not to say I would never do it, but it was a bad one, man. So, you know, it's not like there aren't some bad moments. I mean, people are like, oh, you seem happy all the time. Well, yeah, I am most of the time. I don't have many bad days, right? You know, I'm almost 50 now. I've learned to manage it to the best of my abilities. I'm a stubborn person too, as you know.
Yes.
There are a lot of Monica. There are a lot of things that I shouldn't eat. That I eat, or drink. But you know what? I figure there's a lot of things that I've had to give up. So you know what? Let me just enjoy. Have some joys in life.
Yeah. So looking forward to the book.
Yeah, me too.
What do you think? 3 years?
No.
Oh.
No. It'll be less than 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would hope to have it done in 6 months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a title?
Yes.
Okay, not today though.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Derick.
You're welcome. Thank you, buddy. I love you, man.
Love you too.